My boyfriend humiliated me in front of his friends, said I should be grateful he dated me. But when he lost everything, he came crawling back. My boyfriend dumped me in the middle of a crowded restaurant and laughed about it. In front of his friends. And guess what? He left me with the bill. I sat there, frozen, as he grabbed his jacket, smirked, and said, "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you." Then he walked out. I wanted to disappear. The restaurant was packed, and I could feel every pair of eyes burning into me. Whispers. Stares. A waiter hovering awkwardly near my table, waiting for me to pay for a dinner I didn't even enjoy. And that's when I made a decision. He thought he had humiliated me. He thought I'd just cry, pay, and disappear into the night like some pathetic ex-girlfriend. But he had no idea who he was messing with. For context, I had been with Nathan for 2 years. 2 years, not some casual fling. We had the whole routine down: Sunday brunches, late-night binge-watching, even vacation plans for next summer. I thought we were solid. Were we perfect? No. But who is? Nathan had his little habits, leaving his shoes in the middle of the floor, obsessively checking his reflection in every window, making helpful comments about my appearance. Stuff like, "That dress is nice, but wouldn't a darker color be more slimming? Maybe try a different hairstyle, something more mature." I always brushed it off. I figured, he's just blunt. Past me was an idiot. The first real red flag came when he introduced me to his work friends. Or rather, when he didn't. Nathan invited me to dinner at some insanely expensive restaurant downtown. The kind with no prices on the menu and portions small enough to fit on a spoon. When I arrived, he was already sitting with his 2 coworkers, Ethan and Leo. I smiled and waved, but instead of standing to greet me, Nathan barely looked up from his phone. "You're late," he said flatly. I blinked. Late? I had spent 2 hours getting ready, full makeup, hair curled, even wore heels, which I hate, just to make a good impression. And I was only 3 minutes late. Parking was a nightmare. I laughed nervously, sitting down. Nathan glanced at my dress and muttered under his breath, "Oh, you wore that?" Not quietly. His friends heard. They exchanged a look, and suddenly, I felt like I was invisible. I should have walked out right then. For the next hour, I sat there like a ghost. Nathan and his friends talked about work, throwing around fancy marketing terms and inside jokes I wasn't part of. Any time I tried to join in, Nathan either talked over me or laughed at my opinions. At one point, I mentioned something about my own job, and he waved his hand dismissively. She doesn't really get how real business works. Like I was some clueless child. I bit my lip and focused on my food. I wasn't going to cause a scene. Not in front of his coworkers. Then came the final knife to the gut. Leo asked how we met. I smiled, about to tell the story, when Nathan cut me off. Vanessa introduced us. She felt bad for her. I froze. That's not how it happened. Vanessa had actually warned me about Nathan's ego before setting us up. But I had ignored her. And now, here I was, watching the guy I loved publicly rewrite history to make me look pathetic. I excused myself to the bathroom, just to breathe. In the stall, I took out my phone and texted Vanessa. "WTF is happening?" Before she could reply, I got a notification. Nathan had just tagged himself on Instagram. Boys' night out. I wasn't even mentioned. When I came back to the table, they all stopped laughing. Like they had just been talking about me. I sat down, picked up my fork, and forced myself to eat. That's when Nathan started making jokes about my food. Carb loading for a marathon? That's a bold choice for someone with your body type. His friends laughed. I couldn't even swallow. I set my fork down, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream, to throw my drink in his face, to do something. But I didn't. I just waited. And then, the bill came. Nathan picked it up, looked at it for a second, and then slid it toward me. "You know what? I don't think this is working," he said casually. I just stared at him. "What?" "I've been trying, but I'm just not attracted to you anymore. We should break up." Right there. In the middle of a restaurant. In front of his friends. Then, as he stood up, grabbing his coat, he turned back and delivered the final blow. "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize." And they all walked out. Laughing. I looked down at the bill. $312. For a dinner I didn't even eat. A waiter approached with a nervous smile. I forced myself to breathe. To think. Nathan thought I'd cry. Thought I'd slink away, humiliated. But no. I was done playing his game. I pulled out my credit card, and then I smiled. Because Nathan had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And he was about to find out exactly what happens when you push the wrong girl too far. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high. Not because I was okay, far from it, but because Nathan didn't deserve to see me break. Outside, the night was buzzing with city lights, cars honking, people laughing. But inside, I felt nothing. Just a quiet, simmering rage. I pulled out my phone. 13 missed calls. All from Vanessa. I called her back. The second she picked up, she didn't even say hello. "Tell me you did not just let that greasy little rat dump you like that." My voice was hollow. He left me with the bill. Silence. Then, a long, slow inhale. "Oh, he's dead." I barely remember the drive home. The whole night felt like a blur. The expensive restaurant, the bill, the way Nathan's friends had laughed like it was some kind of game. By the time I collapsed onto my couch, Vanessa was already banging on my door. She came armed, with ice cream, a bottle of wine, and the look of a woman ready to commit arson. I told her everything. Every humiliating detail. She listened, eyes narrowing with each sentence, gripping the wine glass like she wanted to smash it against the wall. And then, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Sabrina. Nathan is broke." I blinked. "What?" She set her glass down. "That whole marketing genius thing he brags about? He's not some rising star at his company. He's an assistant." "No. That's not," he told me. He lied. She pulled out her phone and showed me his LinkedIn. Nathan wasn't running any big projects. He wasn't some rising corporate star. He was just a glorified intern. His boss didn't even know his name. And the cherry on top? Nathan had maxed out his credit cards months ago. Every expensive date? Charged. The vacations we planned? Cancelled because he wanted to save. The rent for his apartment? Late. And yet, somehow, he had the audacity to act like I wasn't good enough for him. I set down my ice cream and leaned forward, feeling something shift inside me. "Okay," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Let's ruin him." The thing about guys like Nathan? They thrive on perception. He had carefully crafted an image of himself as this ambitious, successful, charming guy. But it was all fake. And I was about to tear it apart. The next morning, I woke up early, showered, put on my best outfit, and walked straight into Nathan's office building. Not his floor, his boss's. "Hi, I'm looking for Mr. Callahan," I said sweetly to the receptionist. She looked up from her desk, blinking. "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him it's about Nathan Reynolds." She hesitated. Then picked up the phone. Less than 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Nathan's boss. The real Mr. Callahan. He was polite, professional. Until I dropped the bomb. "I just thought you'd like to know that Nathan has been lying to everyone about his role here. He's been telling people he's a project manager. That he runs meetings. That he's your right-hand man. When really, he's, what, scheduling PowerPoint presentations. Mr. Callahan blinked. Then he let out a slow, amused exhale. He said that? For years. A long pause. Then, he smiled. Interesting. I wasn't done. Also, he's been using your company's name to impress clients at restaurants and bars. He pretends he's high level. Even makes fake business cards. I thought you should know. The change in his face was instant. He leaned back, folding his hands. We don't take kindly to that kind of misrepresentation. Oh, I figured. And just like that, Nathan's entire career started crumbling. That same afternoon, I sent a little group text to Nathan's work buddies, the same guys who had laughed at me in the restaurant. Hey guys. Just thought you'd want to know, Nathan isn't actually getting that big promotion. Turns out, he's not even mid-level at the company. Hope you didn't believe all his stories. See ya. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone exploded. Leo, WTF? Is this true? Ethan, no way. He's been bragging about that project for months. Me, yeah, turns out he was just making coffee for the real team. I imagined their faces, their smug little expressions shifting to horror as they realized Nathan had played them too. By the time Nathan found out what I'd done, it was too late. Nathan called me 6 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning, he showed up at my apartment, banging on the door. I let him stand there for a full 5 minutes before opening it. He looked terrible. Disheveled. Pale. Panicked. What the hell did you do? He snapped. I crossed my arms. Oh. You don't like people knowing the truth? You ruined my job. No, Nathan. You ruined your own job when you built it on lies. His face twisted. You're just bitter because I dumped you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Nathan. You didn't dump me. You embarrassed yourself. I stepped forward, looking him right in the eyes. And now? Everybody sees it. He opened his mouth, but I shut the door in his face. And that was just the beginning. Because soon, Nathan was going to lose a lot more than just his job. He was about to lose everything. Nathan thought he could fix everything. Thought a few words would erase what he did. But reality hit harder. By Monday, the truth spread through his office. No promotion. No high-level projects. No future as some corporate genius. He was nothing more than an assistant, barely useful, barely respected. The real humiliation came when his boss called him out. In front of everyone. Asked him to present his big project to the team. Nathan froze. Stumbled over his words. Couldn't explain the basics. Silence. Then whispers. Then laughter. His co-workers, the same ones who mocked me at dinner, now mocked him. Their group chat turned brutal. His name became a joke. And that was just the beginning. Money problems hit next. Nathan had built his whole life on credit, expensive dinners, designer clothes, a leased BMW he couldn't afford. The moment his paycheck shrank, his lifestyle collapsed. By Wednesday, he put the car up for sale. Desperate. By Friday, his friends stopped answering his calls. No one wanted to be around a man who faked his entire life. Then came the night he showed up at my door. Late. Raining. Looking like he hadn't slept in days. He wanted to talk. Wanted me to understand. But there was nothing left to say. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. I let him stand there. Let him feel the weight of everything he lost. His job. His reputation. His friends. And most of all, me. Nathan thought he had won that night in the restaurant. Thought he had the last laugh. But in the end, he was the real loser. Nathan had nothing left. His job? Gone. His reputation? Destroyed. His friends? Vanished the moment they saw through his lies. But I wasn't finished. He thought this was rock bottom. It wasn't. The real consequences were just beginning. Nathan wasn't just losing face, he was losing everything. With his paycheck shrinking, bills piled up fast. He couldn't afford his rent. Couldn't keep up with his fake lifestyle. And then it happened. He was evicted. One by one, his things were dragged out to the curb. Expensive furniture, designer clothes, the trophies of a life he never actually earned. No BMW to escape in. No friends to take him in. No backup plan. Nathan, who once looked down on me, now had nowhere to go. I knew he'd break eventually. Knew he'd come crawling back. And I was right. He started reaching out. First, texts, pathetic, rambling messages. Then calls. Then voicemails, his voice shaking. He wanted a second chance. Said he made mistakes. That he was under a lot of pressure. That he didn't mean it. But here's the truth. Nathan wasn't apologizing because he regretted what he did. He was apologizing because he had nothing left. One night, he showed up again. Standing outside my door in the dark, looking like a man who had lost everything. He wanted me to listen. Wanted me to feel sorry for him. But I didn't. Not even a little. Because if I hadn't exposed him, he would still be the same person. Still lying. Still pretending. Still walking all over people who cared about him. Nathan wasn't sorry. He was just paying the price. I watched him for a long moment. Then, without a word, I shut the door in his face. No second chances. No forgiveness. No sympathy. Just silence. Nathan thought he had power over me that night in the restaurant. But in the end, I was the one who walked away. And he was the one left behind. Nathan had lost everything. His job. Gone. His reputation. Shattered. His apartment. Emptied out, his things dumped on the sidewalk like trash. And still, he wasn't done humiliating himself. He kept calling. Kept texting. Kept begging. At first, I ignored him. Let him sit in his own mess. But then, something shifted. His messages stopped being desperate. They became angry. He blamed me. Said I ruined his life. Said I turned everyone against him. Said I was cold for not giving him another chance. But Nathan didn't understand. This wasn't revenge. This was just consequences. Nathan tried to rebuild. But once people see you for who you really are, there's no going back. His old job wouldn't take him back. His former friends refused to answer his calls. He tried to act like he was still the same person. He showed up at networking events, still wearing expensive suits, still talking big. But now? Everyone knew the truth. He wasn't some corporate prodigy. He wasn't successful. He wasn't special. And without his lies, he had nothing to offer. One by one, doors slammed in his face. He wasn't welcome anywhere. The last time I saw Nathan, it wasn't because he came to find me. It was by accident. I was walking downtown, enjoying my day, when I saw him. At first, I almost didn't recognize him. His perfect suits. Gone. His expensive watch. Sold. His confidence. Completely erased. He was working as a bartender at some low-end restaurant. Wiping down tables. Taking orders. It wasn't an honest restart. It was survival. He saw me. And for a second, I thought he might come over. Say something. Try to spin some new story. But he didn't. He looked down, ashamed, and disappeared into the kitchen. And that was when I knew. Nathan had finally, completely lost. No sympathy. No regrets. I didn't feel bad for him. Because I knew that if things had gone differently, if I had never exposed him, he'd still be the same arrogant, lying, manipulative person. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. But now? Now he had no one left to lie to. No one to pretend for. No one to clean up his mess. Nathan used to think he was better than me. And now? He couldn't even look me in the eyes. Nathan had lost everything. His job. His reputation. His friends. His fake lifestyle. And now? He had finally hit rock bottom. But I wasn't done yet. Because there was still one last thing he needed to lose. His ego. Nathan had always been a master of deception. A smooth talker. A man who could lie his way out of anything. But now? There was no one left to fool. His job in that cheap bar wasn't just some temporary setback. It was his new reality. No six-figure salary. No office with a view. Just long shifts, rude customers, and a paycheck that barely covered rent. And the best part? Everyone knew. The same people he once tried to impress, the ones he bragged to, the ones he used to laugh at me with, now looked down on him. The same guys who once called him the man now barely acknowledged him. Because Nathan wasn't the guy buying drinks anymore. He was serving them. One night, weeks after I last saw him, Nathan did something I never expected. He sent one final text. It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't even an apology. It was just one sentence. I get it now. And that was it. No excuses. No blame. Just acceptance. He finally understood. Actions have consequences. You can't treat people like they're disposable. You can't build a life on lies and expect it to last. Because eventually, the truth always comes out. And when it does, it destroys everything. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Nathan was no longer my problem. No longer something that kept me up at night. He was just a lesson. A reminder that people will show you who they are. And when they do, believe them. Because the real power? It's not in revenge. It's in walking away. And never looking back.